Hey folks, welcome back to the Psychedelic Podcast by Third Wave, where we bring you cutting-edge conversations from the forefront of the psychedelic movement. I am your host, Paul F. Austin, and today I am speaking with Phoebe McPherson, the head of brand and education at Fungtion.
Kanna is this incredible plant that can help with your nervous system, with anxiety, with depression, with relieving mental health ailments. Many things that do that, like traditional pharmaceutical SSRIs, they almost create this addiction where you feel like you need to have it to be able to feel better. But Kanna, over time, regulates your amygdala. So not only are you less reactive to your stressors, but you're actually able to function and feel better on a daily basis without the need or the dependence on something outside of yourself.
Welcome to the Psychedelic Podcast by Third Wave, audio mycelium, connecting you to the luminaries and thought leaders of the psychedelic renaissance. We bring you illuminating conversations with scientists, therapists, entrepreneurs, coaches, doctors, and shamanic practitioners, exploring how we can best use psychedelic medicine to accelerate personal healing, peak performance, and collective transformation. Hey listeners, this is Paul F. Austin, founder and CEO at Third Wave. Today we dive deep into a lesser-known psychoactive plant from South Africa called Kanna, Kanna. And our guest is Phoebe McPherson, who is deeply knowledgeable and passionate about this largely legal substance. She shares her own journey using it to integrate psychedelic experiences, and we also explore Kanna's use in traditional and modern contexts, how to safely and effectively work with this medicine, and more. Now, I met Phoebe a few years ago. She's been a great supporter and ally of this third wave of psychedelic movement. And she also helped to put together our ultimate guide to Kanna, which is linked to in the show notes. So if you do want to do a deeper dive on Kanna and understand it as a legal substance, as a heart opener that you can work with, then check out our ultimate guide to Kanna. So a little bit more about Phoebe. Phoebe McPherson is an educator, herbalist, gatherer, and the head of brand and education at Fungtion, a nature-inspired wellness brand on a mission to help people reconnect to their bodies and nature through mushroom and plant formulas. And Phoebe has spent years working with and learning from experts in the field about the healing aspects of nature's gifts. While she is deeply knowledgeable about medicinal mushrooms, psychedelics, and plants, her passion lies in sharing Kanna with the world, helping others find safety in their first steps to connect with nature. So today, Phoebe and I go deep into what Kanna is and isn't and how it works on a pharmacological level, traditional uses of Kanna, as well as its evolving uses in modern wellness practices and products, how Kanna can help to regulate the nervous system, working on mood, stress, and opening the heart, the benefits of microdosing with Kanna, as well as how to stack it with certain psychedelics, the safest ways to source and ingest Kanna, including the ideal protocols, and comparisons between Kanna and empathogens like MDMA and other pharmaceuticals. As always, you can let us know what you think about this episode in Third Wave's community, a free resource that's a safe place for discussions around sensitive topics such as psychedelics, and our portal for trusted and research-based content around these medicines. You can access Third Wave community from your web browser or just simply download the app. Create your account for free at community.thethirdwave.co and continue the conversation with us. All right, that's it for now. I hope you enjoy my conversation today with Phoebe McPherson. So a little context, a little background for our listeners. Phoebe McPherson.
Beautiful.
We met a couple years ago now, maybe just under a couple years ago at a what I often call a boutique Burning Man in Palm Springs. And
wild.
At that point in time, I think were just starting to explore Kanna.
Yes.
And the sort of potential of Kanna and the utility of Kanna and the use cases around Kanna. You were involved with a project at that point in time that was helping to, create Kanna tinctures.
It was more mushroom products.
Mushroom products.
Mushroom products, and then exploring Kanna as as an allied assistant to other mushrooms and plants rather than Kanna's sovereignty, which I think has been really interesting. That's changed over the past few years. I think Kanna was always kind of seen as like the sidekick, and now it's getting, its rightful place as, like the superhero, as something that can stand on its own, which is really beautiful to see.
So Kanna's an adaptogen.
Kanna is an adaptogen. Quick overview. Kanna is a succulent from South Africa.
It's a succulent.
It's a succulent.
It's sitting right next to you.
Yeah, so I brought
We're in my
it.
backyard in Encinitas, and the sun is out finally.
It's
We haven't
beautiful.
had, and we have this beautiful Kanna plant. It has all these flowers that are coming out of it, and it's beautiful.
It's
Yeah.
so beautiful.
Thank you for bringing this.
Oh my God, of course. I think anyone that wants to meet a plant should get to, right? Like, it's such a different experience when you can see it and touch it, feel it, smell it, right? But so Kanna is a succulent. It grows like ice grass. So anyone in California has seen ice grass. Ice grass is actually a South African plant that's invasive to California. Fun fact.
Oh.
Yeah, right? I didn't know that until recently either. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Anyways, succulent from South Africa classified as an empathogen. Empathogens are a classification of psychoactive substances that work to increase feelings of empathy, joy, love, helps to open up your heart, for lack of a better word. Some other empathogens that you guys might have heard of are MDMA, sassafras. I believe mescaline can technically be considered empathogenic, but not like just straight empathogen, from what I understand.
Cacao as well would be.
It's not an empathogen, but
No?
theobromine opens up the heart because
Right.
theobromine is a vasodilator. So depending on who you ask, but I think it's more of just a straight stimulant.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And Kanna's also stimulating. in
It can be
nature.
stimulating. So Kanna works chemically as an SSRI PDE4 inhibitor. It can relieve stress and anxiety. It can help with depression, feelings of codependency. It can help with pain relief. It can help with addiction. It can help with insomnia. The indigenous of South Africa actually use Kanna for every part of their life and culture, which is fascinating. Like, not oftentimes do you find a plant that's so deeply woven into the day-to-day life of anyone's ritual or routine. So it's really beautiful to see. The indigenous actually used Kanna for everything from giving it to warriors before they went into battle to suppress hunger and thirst and to keep them focused. They would give droplets of fermented Kanna to babies as they were teething. They would even give Kanna to pregnant women as they were going into labor to ease the labor and delivery, which is fascinating. And then they would use it for these trance dances to help put you in an altered state as you're dancing and healing. And it was used for ceremonies.
The closest parallel that I'm thinking of right now is Iboga with the Bwiti tribe.
Yes.
And they've used it. I think anthropological evidence says they've only maybe used it since the mid 19th century, and that they would use, and I could be wrong on this, so I'm talking Iboga now specifically, and that they would use these low doses for hunting because it helped with visual acuity.
Yes.
And of course the high doses for breakthroughs. So is Kanna similar in that it's very specific to a tribe like the Bwiti, or is it more cross-indigenous?
Yes, so it was used by both the San and the Khoi people of South Africa. And the San and the Khoi are largely considered to be some of the oldest humans on the planet. And it has been used by them for as long as we know, so for millennia, which is fascinating. So it really speaks to just the depth and the length of relationship that these indigenous have had with this plant.
And when did your story begin with Kanna? Why did you become interested in Kanna? Just bring us a little bit into Phoebe McPherson and who she became after being a corporate warrior, and a little bit of your transformation as well. That would be
totally.
awesome.
So I wouldn't say I was a warrior in the corporate world. I was more
I just remember
like,
you showing me a social video
Yeah,
like
people were like,
6
"Wait,
months
what?"
ago where your hair is a different color. You're like, gotta hustle, gotta work hard.
God.
And we were all in our mid-20s as ambitious
Totally.
people who want to grow. Like, that's a natural state.
100%. And I think, so oftentimes we're in this world where we don't know what else we're supposed to do, right? And I came from, an upbringing of you do exactly what you're told to do. And like you follow like the footsteps that you're supposed to. And that's what I did. I thought that was what was right. I thought that's what would bring me happiness. And, I remember being in this state of checking all of the boxes, right? Like I would go to Soul Cycle, I'd go to Pilates, I'd eat my salads, I'd crush it at work meetings, I'd go to the happy hours, all the things. And I was so dead inside. Like I was so dead inside. I could not feel a single thing. Like my friends would call me like Soul Cycle Bot 9000 because like that's literally what I was. And yet like I had this deep yearning to be a part of nature and reconnect with nature, and just something was missing. And Kanna was actually one of my first like plant medicine, quote unquote, true experiences. And it opened me up where I had it with mushrooms, and I started laughing and crying at the same time, realizing that I was deeply, deeply disconnected and deeply unhappy, and none of my life would ever be the same. And I remember looking around at my life, and I was like, all of this has got to go. Like, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but like all of this has got to go. And nothing, like, I'm determined.
And when was this? Just to...
Like 4 years ago.
Okay. 2019.
Yeah. 2019.
2019.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then from there, I had this tarot card reading right before my birthday. And the tarot card reading was for my next year of life. And I remember...
When's your birthday, Phoebe?
May 20th.
May 20th?
Yes, it's coming up.
Are you a Taurus or
I'm a
a
Taurus.
Gemini? You're a Taurus.
So I'm on the cusp, which
Okay.
is fascinating.
Okay.
And Taurus Sun is my only Taurus placement. But I'm almost all feminine placements in my chart, which is a lot.
I can see that.
I've heard that before. And then I'm pretty equal across the 4 elements in my chart. What about you?
August 16.
Ooh, okay.
I know that I'm a Leo, and then my moon is a Cancer, and my rising is a Capricorn.
Oh, I can totally see that. Okay.
Quite balanced across the elements. I think.
Where's your Mars? Do you know?
My Mars is in. I don't know.
It's okay. You don't need to know.
I got an astrology reading done 2 years ago.
Okay.
I think the biggest takeaways from that reading were that I have to emotionally move people and always soften into the heart.
I can see that.
And that I was going to be in an empire building phase until I'm 43. So for about another 11 years,
Wow.
I still am in this 19-year cycle from 24 to 43 of building.
Wow.
Which tracks onto everything that I've done.
I was going to say it tracks.
Third wave and
Everything.
the psychedelic space and everything. So
Just the beauty of who you are and what you're building.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it's a
That's
gift to
sweet.
witness, really.
you.
You're quite the builder. So, had this tarot card reading where essentially the next year of my life would be all about lust and reigniting my passions of life. And like a few days later, I met this person that helped me deep dive into the plant medicine world and deep dive into mushrooms and functional mushrooms. And basically my entire life was turned upside down.
Wow.
I got divorced. I left the corporate world.
Whoa. You got divorced?
Yeah.
You were married?
Yeah.
I feel like
I thought you
maybe
knew.
I heard that one other time, but I don't.
Yeah, I was married.
You were married.
I've
LA?
lived many lives. No. I got divorced by the time I was in LA. It was
So where did you grow up?
So I'm from Washington, D.C.
Okay.
From Washington, D.C. I had a very, D.C., Northern Virginia upbringing.
Okay.
Both my parents worked for government, mom for like the IMF. So you can imagine like what that's like. Everyone around you is just like politics and government and work, and like you just got to work harder.
Yeah.
Great upbringing for sure, but I always wanted to be a journalist, and like that was just like, I don't know if that's like the vibe, but like I hated the idea of like anything desk work. Like I just wanted to like travel the world and tell stories and meet people and then like share their stories, like give people a voice, right? Like the people that are looked over. And I think that's what we do now with nature, right? We're giving nature a voice for those who can't hear her. But so from there, after college, I met a guy, was in a relationship with him. We got married. I got married too young. He's a beautiful human being, but like we weren't right for each other. And like there was so many signs, and we might now call them red flags, or I didn't have the tool set. I didn't have this like consciousness yet to really understand like what wasn't right. Nor did I have the courage to say like this isn't right, because I lived in this world of what will people think. And like, oh my gosh, you have to think of what people would think before you just go and do something. And thankfully now I'm in a world of I don't care what people think. Like, I'm going to go out here and be what I need to be and explore. And like, definitely, we're in the environment for that. And I'm so grateful for it.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
At which point did you become a famous vegan food blogger?
While I was still a corporate girl boss. So I was bored. I get really bored. And I didn't know what to do with myself because I was running social media and influencers for companies. And I had this boss for the startup I worked for. And he told me I didn't know what I was doing on social media. And he was like, I made you and I will destroy you.
Oh.
Like, how dare you? And I was like, bro. And so I started using what I thought was the correct way to run social media and to like build followings on myself. And I shared what I knew, which was, my relationship to food and veganism. And it was so interesting because the blog is now gone, but if you read it from the beginning, you can see my relationship to food and to how I nourish myself start to change. And the following just built. And I'm so grateful because I have followers who've been with me for like 8-9 years who have watched my entire transformation. And they're still with it. They're like, yeah, we're into plant medicine now too. So it's a gift.
And now into Kanna.
Yeah. Super, super cool.
So let's talk a little bit about what some of the commonalities between your journey of transformation through veganism. Like why did you become a vegan?
Yeah.
And what was that process like in terms of how it changed your relationship to yourself, to nature, to community even?
Yeah. So I went vegan when I was like 14, 15.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So like 16 years. It's been a really long time. And I went vegan because I did this project on animal testing. I didn't know that animal testing existed. And I was doing some like project about like changing laws. And I saw videos and photos of animal testing for makeup. And it terrified me. And I started having this like, I don't know, this waking up of like, oh my God, this is what we're doing to animals. And then like we're eating them. And the thought of eating flesh started to terrify me. And I actually told my parents I'm going to be vegetarian and they grounded me. They told me I wasn't allowed to make that decision for myself. And I was like, okay. And so I stayed grounded and then they ungrounded me and I came downstairs that next morning and I was like, I'm actually vegan now. And they were like, okay, you're grounded again. I was like, okay. And at that time, I started reading these books about factory farming and starting educating myself on like just the way that Western society treats food, especially animal-based products. And I don't think I would have been vegan if I lived somewhere like California in like a small town where I had access to like farmers markets and like raw milk and all of this stuff. But I didn't. I grew up in Northern Virginia. Whole Foods was like insane. I was making green juice when I was like 17 and people thought I was a psychopath. Like I would get made fun of in school, like in my AP English class. And it was this thing where like I just stuck to my guns because for me it felt right. And it forced me to re-examine the food that I was putting in my body because at first my parents were like, well, you got to figure out what you're going to eat. And I was like, I don't know. And I would eat like peanut butter sandwiches because I didn't know what to put in my body. And through that, it was like really discovering the sovereignty of like everything you need to heal yourself. Like you have the tools that you need. And so often we look at like the world to heal us or take care of us, but like we have to have that independence. And I think the parallel then to Kanna is this incredible plant that can help with your nervous system, with anxiety, with depression, with relieving mental health ailments. But many things that do that, like traditional pharmaceutical SSRIs, they almost create this addiction where you feel like you need to have it to be able to feel better. But Kanna over time regulates your amygdala. So not only are you less reactive to your stressors, your amygdala is like your fight or flight part of your brain, but you're actually able to function and feel better on a daily basis without the need or the dependence on something outside of yourself. And what a gift can a plant give us, right? Such relief. And then also over time say, okay, you've now got this yourself. Like I was your crutch. I was your ally. I will always be here for you. If you go through something intense, you need me again, but go walk your own path.
And I'm feeling a lot of parallels here with even microdosing.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, as we've talked about microdosing LSD or psilocybin through the podcast or through Third Wave, a lot of our conversation is this is a catalyst. This is an opener. This can really help you get out of a rut or explore new vistas of potential. And it's not the drug itself. It's a teacher.
It is a teacher.
And it's an ally. Mm-hmm. But ultimately the power is inside of you. And it's just helping you to remember that in many ways.
Exactly. 100%. And, if I go on like my more woo-woo side, I like to say that psychedelics, Kanna, and pathogens, they help wake you up to remember how to listen to nature and listen to your body, reconnect with your body. Because when you're able to really sit with that and listen to what your body needs and doesn't need, like that's where the healing is going to come from. And that is why microdosing is so important. And I recommend people, quote unquote, microdosing Kanna or stacking it with mushrooms or LSD or something else, because they each are working in such unique ways on your body that depending on what you need that week, that month, that year, there's something that can help catalyze you forward if you are stuck in a rut, to use your terminology, which is so beautiful.
So one of the common comparisons that we hear with Kanna is it's like MDMA.
Yes.
And we've talked about this before, and you've been a little hesitant to get on board with that lens and that perspective. So I'd love if you could just talk about some of the similarities between MDMA and Kanna, but also more importantly, what are some of those core differences between MDMA and Kanna?
Yeah. That's a great question. And I'm glad you brought it up. I remember there was this article on Vice about like, this is the natural MDMA.
Which is now bankrupt, by the way.
I saw that. I was like, it's because you talked about Kanna.
Yeah. I think there were a lot of people who had that. It's because of her. Fuck you, Vice.
I know, but it's sad because like they really did push the label, and like beautiful things like that should be able to exist. But I was really upset about that article. But so in a really like high level way, Kanna and MDMA are very, very similar. Very similar. The thing is, MDMA has amphetamines in it and it's very speedy. And it's a very intensified version of Kanna. It's also synthesized. So they're both functioning as SSRIs, right? Serotonergic, they're working on your dopamine receptor sites, on your opioid receptor sites. They're very similar. The thing is, MDMA has this amphetamine component to it, and it's very speedy, and it can deplete your serotonin levels significantly over time. And there can be like a lot of like that serotonergic come down like the day after you have like a ton of MDMA. The thing with Kanna is that it's natural. So anything that's going to be a plant or from the ground is automatically going to be better, and you're not getting any of that amphetamine speediness. I like to tell people like comparing Kanna to MDMA is like comparing coffee to cocaine. So technically they're similar when you look at it like pharmacologically, but they're not, right? Like it's a very microdose. And so if I now sometimes use the MDMA reference, only if people have no understanding of anything else that I'm talking about. Like it is a tool in my tool belt. And when I tell people, it's like, it's a microdose of MDMA, microdose of MDMA with none of the speediness. So imagine having this beautiful heart-opening sensation where you can authentically connect with other people. And then the next day you don't feel depleted and you feel really good. And like, that's what Kanna is doing. And I think sometimes sassafras MDMA, it creates connection, yes, but it can be inauthentic because it's so over the top. But Kanna, I think, cultivates really authentic connection, right? It's something where the first layer of your ego is removed so that you can vulnerably show up to another person without having to spill your heart and without having to be, I don't know, someone that you wouldn't be outside of medicine.
Let's talk a little bit about MDA then, sassafras, because right, the core thing that you mentioned with MDMA is that it has that methamphetamine component. Mm-hmm. It's much more stimulating. That can be the reason they're using MDMA for PTSD is that extra stimulating component, particularly for those with PTSD, can help them stay awake.
Yes, totally.
When working through traumatic experiences, because oftentimes the brain and the body just shuts down. And so that's an important part. But
oh, absolutely.
But most people who are listening to this don't have complex PTSD or significant PTSD. They're really looking at, just living more authentic, connected, fulfilling lives. And so I'd love to hear what are some of those nuanced differences between sassafras, because sassafras is, from what I understand, also a natural substance.
Yes.
Although it's not always sold as a natural.
Yeah. So there's sassafras bark, and then there's most sassafras is all synthesized that you can get. Okay. And I can't speak a ton to sassafras, but what I can say is, again, most sassafras is synthesized, and there's a lot of dirty sass out there, where you feel really, really bad the next day. And something without as much of that, amphetamine speediness component is going to be amazing, but it's still a lot on your nervous system, And MDMA, MDA are absolutely incredible as tools, as medicine, as allies, recreationally, if that's something that you're called to. Like the MDMA research maps, what they're doing is phenomenal. I've had experiences with MDMA for complex PTSD. And I understand it. Like my fight or flight is I go into dorsal. Like I completely shut down and it looks like I'm dead and I'm not. So I get it, and it's just different tools for different use cases. I think Kanna can be an amazing ally for therapy. Do I think it's always going to be an MDMA replacement or an MDA replacement? No. I think it depends on what people are going for and what they need. Kanna is more of like that day-to-day, that gentle ally.
So bring us a little bit deeper into the modern story of Kanna. I first heard about Kanna in early 2017.
Oh, wow.
I had just gotten back from speaking in Amsterdam, and the group that I was supporting or speaking at their event, it was the Psychedelic Society of the Netherlands or something like that.
Epic.
And Kanna was just being sold in head shops there, and they knew about it, and they sent me home with it, and I looked at it, and I tried a little bit, and I didn't really think much of it. And it wasn't until maybe till we met a few years later, 3-4 years later, that I started to hear more about Kanna. Yeah. And nowadays it's like
it's blown up.
You can't go anywhere without hearing about the tinctures or microdoses or clinical research, or I was just with a few friends a few weeks ago, and they're talking about how the price is now increasing with Kanna, and why is the price increasing with Kanna. So I'd love if you could just talk a little bit about that story of Kanna over the last few years. Why is it becoming more relevant and more popular? What type of maybe research is being done on Kanna? What are some of the use cases in terms of why people are coming to Kanna? Just some of that.
Yeah, so I think, the story of Kanna entering the world stage, the world market, is parallel with the story of psychedelics entering the world stage and the world market. This third wave that we are in of psychedelic renaissance means that people want access to things that are legal and things that are going to help them feel better. So in my opinion, Kanna started really entering the world stage right after the pandemic. Where we started to see murmurings of it. People were having experiences with it in like high doses in plant medicine circles, and people just started to want it. And I helped introduce what we believe to be the first like branded Kanna microdose to the world stage at Meet Delic. Remember 2021? And I remember I got off stage from talking about it, and we had 200 orders in 5 minutes.
What?
It was insane. We sold out of the Kanna microdose. We didn't have any more. And from there, I'm not saying that we catalyzed it, but I remember from there, within 6 months, there were suddenly more Kanna brands, and everyone was talking about it, and it was fascinating to watch. And I think we just got really lucky, entering it right at the precipice. And in addition to that, there's been some fascinating research that keeps coming out about it. And big leaders like Paul Stamets and James Fadiman, they're talking about Kanna, right? And I think it's just been this groundswell that's been building for a long time. We've had some people that are really exporting some beautiful Kanna outside of South Africa, and the technology's there to now standardize extracts. So I'll go quickly into that. So within Kanna, it's one of the most ethnobotanically diverse plants on the planet. Currently, there's 32 known alkaloids, but the two main alkaloids are mesembrine and mesembrynone. Mesembrine is what's responsible for the SSRI effect and acting as a PDE4 inhibitor. And then mesembrynone is giving you this euphoric effect as well. Sorry, mesembrine is a VMAT for a protein activator, and then mesembrynone is a PDE4 inhibitor. And so basically, they're all working to give you this euphoric effect and then work as a natural anxiolytic and antidepressant. The thing is, when you just take a whole plant, and probably what you got in Amsterdam, if you're not standardizing the alkaloid, it's going to be hit or miss. Kind of like when we're working with mushrooms, right? We want to work in really high doses so we can standardize what the dose is going to be, like gram to gram. And so we started getting this technology where we could get a standardized extract, like 3%, 5% mesembrane, and people could start to have a really reliable experience with it time and time again, which means we can start creating products for end users, for people who don't want to go and grow and ferment their own Kanna plant. And so all of these things building together just made, it was perfect for Kanna to start coming to the world market. And so outside of one of the first people to pharmaceuticalize it, Zembrin, they funded a ton of research on Kanna, started to bring it to the world stage. We're now seeing brands that are popping up to provide Kanna in more of a everyday supplementation, not pharmaceutical, but recreational dose, right? In South Africa today, it's used both pharmacologically and recreationally. So there's people who are taking it for anxiety and then they take it to go work out or go hang out and not drink. And now we're seeing that in the United States and around the world because we have Kanna that is reliable, that really works. And there's people that are really excited about it and they're starting to experiment with it and see what's going to be the best. So I don't know if that answers your question.
That helps. I'll keep digging.
Yeah, keep digging.
What do you think are some of the clinical indications that Kanna could be potentially useful for in terms of what maybe is it being, brought through the FDA approval process? Is it...
It is. Yeah. Because it's already been pharmaceuticalized, I know Zembrin is approved by the FDA.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I've seen some murmurings that it was on the list of plants of concern. Damiana was on the list of plants of concern too, which made me really sad.
That's an aphrodisiac.
Right? It's an aphrodisiac. Incredible aphrodisiac from Mexico. It reduces performance-related anxiety. Fascinating, right? Okay. So it really helps you connect with another person in the bedroom or elsewhere. Mm-hmm. We love it. So plants of concern are, stuff that FDA is looking at. Do we need to schedule it? Do we need to not? Because it's already been pharmaceuticalized, I think it's fine. But the plant across the board has not been approved by the FDA. And the problem is there hasn't been enough funding for independent research of the plant. So from that standpoint, who knows? But what we do know is that the studies using Zembrin have shown that it is an incredible antidepressant, anxiolytic, aid for those going through addiction, and for people that are looking for help in withdrawing from benzos. I believe it's benzos.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's actually been really effective. Yeah, it's fascinating. According to the internet and research, they say that if you're on an SSRI, do not take Kanna. And I cannot tell you whether you can or can't, but what I can say is that there are people that are trying to detox off of SSRIs, like pharmaceutical SSRIs, using a very, very low dose of Kanna and have been able to do it more effectively, more quickly, with little to no side effects. Similarly to people using a traditional psilocybin microdose to come off SSRIs.
Right, and we know that psilocybin is only contraindicated with lithium.
Yes.
And at the same time, there might be I would imagine there's some potential of combining the two, psilocybin and Kanna
together.
Together.
Well, and that's the thing. Kanna is very safe, basically non-toxic. I mean, there's definitely side effects. If you take too much, you can get sick. Sure. You have to be careful with anything that functions as an SSRI so you don't flood your brain with serotonin and die, right? Serotonin syndrome. Low doses, which is what I'm recommending most people to work at, you're going to be safe. You're going to be fine. You'd feel the effects long before it's an issue. But yes, Kanna is like tofu. It soaks up the effects or the energetics of whatever's around it. So imagine you have something like a psilocybin microdose or macrodose, which is opening up your brain and your spirit, this etherealism, right? It's increasing neuroplasticity. But then you add this component that works on the heart, your feelings, the more nuanced part of what it means to be a human, and you combine them together. There's not enough addressing head-heart combinations, and it's a beautiful, beautiful combination for people to have.
I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about adaptogens. So we were before we went live, we were talking about psychoactives, adaptogens, psychedelics.
So many terms.
Right. We at Third Wave, we published a guide with your help.
Yeah.
On Kanna.
It was so fun to publish.
We now have an ultimate guide to Kanna. We do recognize that it's not a classic psychedelic or really a psychedelic at all, I suppose.
Yeah.
Although I will say if, a lot of people would consider MDMA to be a psychedelic. So it may just depend on the intention, the set and setting, et cetera, et cetera. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about how do we define adaptogens? Why is it that Kanna is an adaptogen. And then would you consider Kanna to be a psychedelic or just a psychoactive?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to work backwards. So the last question you asked, I'll answer first. So depending on who I'm talking to, I could call Kanna a psychedelic. And that is because for many people, psychedelic is this umbrella term that's going to include ketamine and MDMA and sassafras and all these things. And if it does, then yeah, Kanna is a psychedelic, especially in high doses. You know, it has psychedelic properties. It's not working on your HP or 2A receptors.
5-HT2A. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. So many letters and numbers. It's not working on those receptors, but it's working on other receptors which psychedelics are working on that is changing your brain chemistry. And when we think about what a classic entheogen or classic psychedelic is, it's giving you this experience with God or something greater. And Kanna can absolutely do that. Absolutely. So yes, it can. When I put on my like Virgo moon super analytical hat, and I'll say no, it's not, because it's not a classic psychedelic. When you look at the pharmacology, it does not fit into that. So it depends. But for most people, yeah, it's within this kind of psychedelic adjacent space, right? And then adaptogen. So an adaptogen is anything that's going to adapt to your system. It helps your body adapt to stress and stressful environments. It makes you more resilient to stress without suppressing your system, right? It's either going to up or down regulate who you are. And then it's also non-toxic. So it has to be non-toxic. Examples of really good adaptogens: cordyceps is an awesome adaptogen, rhodiola, ginseng, holy basil, so many amazing ones across the board. And with that qualification of what an adaptogen, Kanna absolutely is. It's regulating your amygdala. Depending on who's taking it, it's either going to make you more talkative, more outgoing, or maybe more quiet and calm down your system. It's adapting to you to give you what your body needs, which is beautiful. And I think sometimes we confuse the word adaptogen with just like something that's good for your system or something that's unnerving. But adaptogens are very specific and they're very, very powerful.
And they help bring us back to homeostasis.
Yes,
right?
yes, exactly. So up or down regulating. So something that's immunomodulating is technically bringing your body to homeostasis with your immune system. Adaptogens are doing that with your nervous system.
I remember I first started working with rhodiola when I was 18. I played college soccer.
Nice.
And someone on our team his family was the founder of Amway.
Wow.
And so they just gave us a bunch of supplements to take. And one of them were these little pills that had both rhodiola and caffeine. And I never heard of rhodiola.
Whoa, rhodiola and caffeine?
Together.
Wild.
And so, but I knew that if I took those before a game or before practice, I was always a little bit more alert. I always had a little bit more stamina. I was always a little bit more on top of things. And so at that point, I just started doing research. And it turns out, I mean, this is 14 years ago now, but it turns out that there was really no research that had been done in the United States. But there was a lot of research that had been done in Russia.
Yeah, and it's still classified.
Really?
Yeah, so most of the rhodiola research in Russia is still classified to this day, which is fascinating.
Why is that, do you think?
Because
protect pharmaceutical companies?
I don't know. I mean, you know, my wild mind likes to be like, no, like what they know is like so great. Like the US can't know. But who knows?
Because these adaptogens, rhodiola, ashwagandha, now Kanna,
holy basil, cordyceps, lion's mane.
They're in
chaga.
They're all over now. They're super integrated into the wellness scene.
And that's what I was saying. You know, like Kanna has come to the world stage is, you know, this reemergence of herbalism, of plants. I like to say it's the reconvergence of nature and humanity. You know, we shunned nature, especially in Western society, for so long. Everything had to be sterilized and packaged. And we're starting to see like even our gut microbiome is going to be healthy if we have a little bit of dirt from the farmer's market. And we're starting to really believe in all of these plants and mushrooms again. And like, what a gift, right? It's what indigenous have known all along.
Right. We're coming back to that archaic wisdom, which is important. Okay, I want to talk about two more things.
Yes.
One is environmental concerns around Kanna. Is it endangered? Is it soon to be endangered? Is it flourishing and plentiful and everywhere? Tell us a little bit about how it's grown, how long it takes to grow, and some of the environmental aspects around Kanna.
So Kanna is indigenous to South Africa. And some say parts of Namibia, which used to be part of South Africa, but you know, what are world borders? And it grows like ice grass, like I said, in a part of South Africa called the Karoo. Think of it similar to Joshua Tree. So it was almost cultivated to extinction by the Dutch explorers in the late 1600s. And then essentially the indigenous, the Khoi and the San, tried to hide where it was, and they brought it like back to flourishing. And then nowadays you can barely find it in the wild, but it's being cultivated really beautifully in South Africa. Many researchers believe that Kanna needs to be given a designation similarly to champagne. So you know how champagne has to be grown in the Champagne region? Same with Kanna. It needs to grow in this specific environment for it to have the alkaloids and the properties that it needs to have. And that, research with Kanna is so new and continues to emerge. So we'll see, what happens. But I think it's a really interesting way to look at it. Almost all of the Kanna farms that are cultivating it for exporting, they're growing it in the ground. They're not growing it in buckets. They're not growing it in beds. It's literally in the ground with maybe a shade over top because it's crazy resilient and it grows. It typically takes 4 years to grow until you can harvest it for medicine. We're seeing more and more cultivation farms popping up. There are murmurs of people trying to do it here in Southern California, which would be fascinating to watch, to see, just how the energetics change, how the alkaloids change. But at the moment, it's not endangered, which is great. That being said, in 2020, there was a researcher who was explaining to me that there were poachers who stopped trying to poach animals and tried to poach Kanna. And they were poaching Kanna from the wild and stealing it from labs. So it's a really high interest plant. What political things are going on with it specifically in South Africa right now, I'm not super familiar. I'm not as up to date, but it's not endangered. And we have a lot of it right now. And supply is meeting demand, which is great.
Next question that I have for you is around protocols. So for those who are listening at home, if they want to potentially start to work with Kanna, how should they think about integrating that as a supplement? Is it every day? Is it every other day? How much Kanna, depending on tincture versus, if it comes in supplement form? Just give us a lay of the land in terms of actually working with the medicine itself.
So there's a few ways to take Kanna. You can insnufflate it. You can smoke it. It's really great to smoke with cannabis. The indigenous would smoke cannabis and Kanna together. It's like this super, super ancient stack. Highly recommend it to anyone who's called to cannabis. Or you can make a tea out of it, or you can get it in a tincture or capsules or put it in something. If you're ordering Kanna from the internet, to all of your listeners, please, please, please be careful. Ask for third-party lab results, right? It needs to be lab tested, and ask for the COAs, and then ask what it's standardized to in terms of its alkaloid ratios. Typically, you want like a 3% alkaloid, 3% mesembrine, and at that, you can start with 25 milligrams. Every day if you want. I always recommend a 5-2 protocol. I think it honors Western cycles of nature, right? Weekdays, weekends off. And then you can go up from there. I wouldn't take more than 200 milligrams in a day if you're using it for an actual protocol routine. If you are looking at Kanna that is not standardized, it's not a standardized extract, like you're doing it in a tea, try to do a 2-to-1 in a French press of tea to water and go from there. And then outside of that, just be really, really careful with what you're ordering. You can get a 2-to-1 extract tincture, start with half a tincture full from there and go on. If it's a really good source, they're going to tell you how much to take and tell you how much Kanna is in it. And if it's an extract or if it's the whole plant. So that's what I can say overall. And then in terms of protocol, 5-2 is a great protocol to start with, and then listen to your body after about a month or 2 months. And then most people take at least a week break after 3 months of working with Kanna. There are many people who will take it every single day for 3 months, really have the shift, and then take a break and turn back to it only when they're going through an emotionally or physically intense time.
What are some of the subjective benefits that people experience? So let's say they go and they do a 5-day on, 2-day off. Yeah. They do it for 3 months. What are some shifts that people are noticing after they go through that protocol?
Yeah. They're able to handle difficult conversations with grace. They're able to get to sleep without any sort of supplementation and actually get really good sleep. They're able to handle stressful situations at work. They feel a noticeable upshift in their mood. So their lows aren't quite so low and their highs are still pretty high, and they're not suppressing their emotions. They find that their anxiety is melted off of them. They find that they're able to more authentically connect with another human being without any guise of anxiety or having to put a mask onto the world. Many people find that when they use it in the evenings, they're able to drink less, they're able to take less supplements. It can also help with emotional eating because it can suppress thirst and hunger. It's incredible. Depending on the person, there's so many things that it can benefit with. For me specifically, it's amazing to start my day because it keeps me focused without getting me jittery if I'm having coffee or a stimulant like cacao. It melts all of my anxiety away, which is so huge. I struggle so immensely with social anxiety. And it allows me to just be with another person and be able to just sit with them in that beautiful comfort of being.
This sounds good.
It's really good. And you've experienced it.
I have in not in just the plant itself.
Totally.
Right?
But
so
stacked.
I've tried it. I've had it stacked with psilocybin, theobromine, lion's mane, and damiana.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've noticed about that combination is it makes me feel really gooey.
Yeah.
And particularly with the strain that is used, it's a ghost strain. Ghost tends to have a more hard opening quality to it anyway. So it just, whenever I do it, it feels like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. I can sort of rest and be present in that. And generally life is very good. Like I have a lot of gratitude and gratefulness that comes from that. And of course, that's through that combination. I've also done it in more, like we had a team retreat a month or so ago in San Diego. And so our entire team had a little bit of it, like a half chocolate to a chocolate for like a more connected, intimate social evening.
Beautiful.
And it just allowed everyone to really drop in and be present. But I haven't tried Kanna by itself. And now I've done a lot of different microdosing protocols, Wachuma, LSD, and psilocybin in particular, but then mixed with different formulations. And I'm kind of curious now to just try like what would a Kanna microdosing protocol feel like and do? Because a lot of what I'm working on this year is just healing my heart and opening the heart. And so it sounds like this is a really great way to facilitate that learning.
Oh, absolutely. And it's one of the reasons I started deepening my connection with Kanna. I went through 3 nights of ayahuasca, and it was a dark night of the soul for 3 nights, and each night got darker. And when I came out of it, I was completely unstable. I was having like 8-hour PTSD episodes 3 hours a week, 3 days a week. No, it was really, really bad. And it was a scary time.
Was this because of the way the ceremony was held or just
what it brought up? I had a lot of repressed memories that came up all at once. Okay. I was cracked open way too fast.
Okay.
And that's no one's fault. Like that's what the medicine provided. And then, there's just ways that you're held afterwards. Right. And, I was just in a really, really fragile state, and these just emotions were completely overwhelming my system. And it was because of microdosing Kanna that I was able to actually start working through these emotions and processing them without suppressing them or without them overwhelming my system. So I'm crying for 8 hours, and I was able to move forward from that. And it was such a gift, and I don't take it as intensely as I did at that time because I don't need to now. And if it wasn't for this connection with Kanna and this relationship that I built with it, I wouldn't be sitting here today. Like I wouldn't be able to do the work that I'm doing today.
Right.
And because of that, so there's a company that I'm working for, Fungtion, and I got to formulate a Kanna tincture, which I'm really excited about. And I formulated it based off what I would have wanted in a tincture when I was going through that, and what I think everyone around me really needs, which is something that's going to be an ally that's just going to put you in your body and ground you and root you and make you feel really good.
Yeah.
And like you talk a lot about like stacking, and it's like the potentiation of Kanna with other adaptogens and plants and herbs that is so profound.
Right.
Like it's so absolutely profound in the way that it can either be really stimulating for your system or it can really bring you down. So like in the chakras that you have, it makes you ooey and gooey and loving and you want to connect. And then this tincture, it's it's almost like someone's like plugged you into the earth and like pulled you back down. It has like chaga and reishi and kava and valerian. And it tastes like cookies, but there's no sugar. It's amazing. I'm so excited.
I'm gonna have to try this.
Oh yeah,
you gave me some right
I
before
gave you
this,
some.
right?
Yeah, so you have it.
So now I have no reason not to.
Yeah, well, I'll get you a straight Kanna microdose too,
I would love
so
that
then
too.
you can try all of the things. Really build a relationship with her.
That would be beautiful.
Yeah.
As a final sort of sending off, if you will, if folks want to learn more about Kanna or maybe they want to work with Kanna, we have our guide on Third Wave's site. That's pretty comprehensive. You had mentioned you're working on maybe a documentary. I don't know if that's happening still. Or...
I am still working on a documentary. Okay. It's in the beginning stages, and the documentary is going to just tell the story of this plant, right? It's so important to document, how humans perceive and work with plants over time. And hopefully the intention is that when the documentary comes out, any proceeds will go straight into a nonprofit that we've set up to support the plants, support women getting microloans to grow the plant in South Africa, and also protect the plant, to put protections in place, fund independent research. It's gonna be really cool. So stay tuned for that. People can follow me on Instagram for like the latest. So it's my name _Phoebe _McPherson. I'm sure we'll put it in the show notes. Mm-hmm. And I have a guide pinned at the very top, and then there'll be tons of education coming out. There's a company tagged Fungtion, and we're doing a ton of education around Kanna. Our focus is just putting out information so people can have sovereignty to decide what kind of product they want to put in their body. And I recommend a ton of companies on my own page as well.
So _Phoebe _McPherson on Instagram. You have a guide to Kanna pinned there. And do you also have in that guide reputable, trustworthy sources to work with Kanna?
Yes.
Okay.
So I have sources to work with Kanna. I have brands for end products if that's something you're interested in. Okay. And then I always tell people, like, there's a text-only number on my bio. You can text, and I will respond, and I will give you access or point you in the right direction of whatever you need. And yeah, just reach out if you need anything else, and just know that there are really, really beautiful ways to connect with the plant, and the Third Wave Guide is a great place to start.
Well, Phoebe, thank you. Thank you for all of your support. And it's really been a pleasure to get to know you these last couple years now.
You too.
And I know we've been talking about this podcast for a while, almost probably 9-10 months. So it's nice to sit in a backyard in Encinitas under the sun and
just chat about Kanna.
I learned so much today. I saw the plant today, which is a beautiful plant. I learned so much about its history, its past, its use cases, what people are experiencing. So thank you for being a wealth of knowledge about this really important plant.
You're welcome, and thank you for sharing it with the world.
Thanks so much for watching. If you want to grow your own medicine from microdosing or high dose experiences, check out our Mushroom Grow Kit. It's the simplest way to get a reliable source of high quality mushrooms, and it includes detailed videos walking you through the entire process. No guessing, just clear instructions for best results. Check out the link in the description below.